Hey everyone, and welcome back to the sixth episode of the Voyager Roundtable. Here today, I'm joined as usual by DJ Crypto and special guest Pat Ackerman, someone we've been following with the Voyager and VGX community, someone who obviously crunches the numbers. We're gonna definitely dive into those here today in this video, but we're going to talk about Voyager, the VGX token, the crypto markets, the overall economy, and much, much more. So if you end up enjoying this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and check out the description for these guys' Twitter handles and YouTube channels and whatnot. And guys, thanks so much for coming on.
Pleasure to be here.
Totally. All right. So maybe let's start with Pat. If you can maybe just give us a bit about who you are, a bit of your background, and how you first got involved with Voyager.
Yeah, sure. I guess I haven't told this story for a long time because like people have started to know me pretty well. But yeah, I've been in crypto since 2015. My first Bitcoin back then, and my background is in kind of customer experience, technology, finance, and analytics. And so a number of years ago, as part of doing some analytical studies across Bitcoin and some various readings and articles from people. Brian Kelly was kind of the first one that introduced me to him. He's on CNBC a lot now. And so yeah, I kind of dipped my toe in the water back then, thought I was a genius for, doubling my money. And then, it's like, oh, this is fun. I made some money and, did pretty well and then kind of left for a little while, then came back. And, it's been an interesting journey to see the evolution of crypto from those that maybe made a little bit of money, left, maybe come back to now where we are now. So I have kind of a passion for storytelling and analytics, and so crypto has been a really good fit for me. I love the finance aspect of it, company balance sheets, things like that. So it's just been a really good, interesting passion for me, and yeah, I've really enjoyed engaging with the community. So I got into Voyager. I guess I would say it's probably March of 2020, the big flash crash with Bitcoin. I'd started to watch Steve, and I guess it was Wolf of Wall Street. He had Steve on a couple times, downloaded it, really enjoyed the platform, especially yield generation. That was the most interesting thing for me. I think that catches a lot of people's eye. So started buying a little bit of Bitcoin here and there. And I remember watching on Voyager's app when Bitcoin was flash crashing on that, was it the March 20th of 2020, and just, buying as much as I could at the time. And yeah, so then about May, I moved almost all my other holdings to Voyager and then was kind of testing out some other different platforms. And, Steve had emailed me and said, hey, so I'm going to move some money. Any chance we can keep you? What can we do? And he kind of got me right then. When he sent that email and just said, hey, would love to keep you. And so ever since then, I've bought Voyager kind of June of 2020, and I've enjoyed the ride all the way. Everything from understanding what it was to, not being a lot out there about it. So then I started writing about it, especially when the swap was originally announced. And yeah, I've just been really enjoying sharing the story of what I think the potential is of VGX and what it's already became so far. And so it's been a fun journey for me. So kind of a long way to say that's been my journey with crypto and my background, a little bit more about my entry with Voyager. So
yeah, so did you buy VGX the moment you started using the platform, or did it take a bit of time to kind of get that?
Yeah, I mean, it actually took me, first started getting in there about March of 2020. I didn't buy my first VGX until June. I didn't know much about it. It wasn't really, I didn't know what it was for. And so I started investing in it when I had done quite a bit of research on it, and what the potential could be. And now it's a little different because actually there's utility, but back then it was pretty small. You got the bonus, that was about it. So
yeah, I mean, it's changed, so significantly from just a token to now something that actually has utility for the people that can use it, like you two, not me yet, but given location. But I don't know, what's you guys' experience been over the past couple of weeks with the update, with the program? How have you guys been liking that?
Love it.
Yeah.
I think the program is it's going to be powerful. I think it's hard to know exactly what it means to people yet. Even me personally, right? I do a fair amount of trading on Voyager and can't wait to get those cashback rewards. Well, I don't really quite know yet what that means for me. I don't quite know exactly what it translates into. So I think that's an opportunity area. And I think once I start seeing how that adds up, I think it'll be even more powerful. I've already gotten a few, but was it you get a friend to come on and then you get some additional VGX, refer a friend, and I've gotten some of those rewards. And I think I saw Landon even tweet one out recently that he had gotten one of those as well. So that'll start multiplying as well. So yeah, big thing for me is the cashback rewards, which I'm excited to participate in. So
yeah, totally. I mean, everyone's got their favorite part of the program, but obviously a lot of it's yet to come because right now it's mainly based around cryptocurrencies, right? Because Voyager is simply a crypto brokerage. You can earn interest on your cryptocurrencies, your stable coins, but obviously with time, it's going to expand into something that kind of impacts your financial life in pretty much every way. So the loyalty program, and this is something I just kind of thought about it over the past little while here. Currently, it just impacts the cryptocurrency side of people, right? But there's an entirely other finance part of people's lives, whether it be banking or getting paid or stocks, that is yet to be unlocked. And with time, you're going to have that, hopefully tailwind for the price of more incentives coming to not just the crypto side of things, but also kind of overall finance. So I don't know. What do you guys think about the future of the program?
Well, DJ, why don't you talk? I know I'm taking all your time, but
I got plenty. I talk all day long. You know that.
That's part of one of the reasons why I've written more and more about VGX, Daniel, because I think people miss that aspect of it. They're like, the VLP, it's a flop. The price is going down. It's all of this, concern, which I understand because people's, they've invested their hard-earned money into it, right? And so they feel vested in it, which is part of the stickiness of customer loyalty. But again, part of VGX is so much bigger, longer term, because there's other plays at this. It's not just the cashback rewards today. It's additional, unlocking around maybe margin or loans down the line, and maybe it's as part of payments, as part of a small business. It's so many other plays around the loyalty aspect of this as it comes along. There's obviously things they can do on the VLP now that they need to look at doing. This is version 1, but this is such a longer term play than it's not your lotto ticket necessarily right now. It's the longer term investing of getting this program and being almost having a piece of real estate, as I call it, on the loyalty program that eventually will become so much bigger than it is today.
I got a question on the kind of how it rolled out in regards to, you were in place when the first swap and VLP was announced, which was prior to when I got in, and which was last year in 2020. And then you said you started buying VGX in June of 2020, which there was pretty much no timeline at all at that point, right? As far as a loyalty program. So was it?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Good point. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Keep going.
I was going to say, what was it at that time to get you into VGX? Because when I got in, it was paying like 3% interest. So it's not like a high yield producer compared to others on the platform. But what was it that got you into it last year? The research that you did, was it just anticipation of what was to come, or what was it?
It was all about the potential, what I thought Steve could do with the platform. And then at that point in time, there was no talk of a loyalty program. It was by a certain amount. I think it was 10,000 to have the additional booster. You got 3% on it. Mm-hmm. It was totally a play, getting in early, thinking that there's a potential this thing could become so much bigger than that. And that was all the reason why I bought it. And I love the platform, and so I bought a decent amount of it. And then when the swap and the loyalty program was first happened with LGO, people were very excited when that announcement was made. People were going crazy about how excited they were, the utility finally coming, all that kind of stuff. And then a lot of people forget all of the FUD and misinformation that came with trying to correct the first version of the VLP, right? That kind of happened in the back half. Because that first article I wrote in October actually was a response for people probably misunderstanding what they were even announcing. That was originally the reason why I wrote the first article and started writing after that, because I think people were just completely missing an understanding of that. And that I've heard, a lot of people were helped from those initial articles in kind of October, November, December before it really took off. from that standpoint. So there's so much to come, I think. But yeah, that's the original reason why I got into it. And I like getting in earlier in some of these projects because the potential ROI is much bigger. Now it's the bigger play is using the platform and the rewards, and there's still a longer term play of price improvement and whatnot. And we have to remember that, but also here to actually get the benefits, and that's the reason to own it. So
I think, we need to address at this point the elephant in the room, because there has been a lot of talk with Coinbase and their lending service and the whole SEC situation. Brian pointed out here, and I think we should talk about this for a bit here. What's going on with Voyager Earn? I don't know if one of you guys wants to talk about this. I can for sure talk about it. Maybe go through the potential implications for Voyager as a platform, and then how that translates down to the stock, the token. I don't know. One of you two want to talk about it, or
you go ahead?
Yeah, I can. I'll start, and then maybe we can have a back and forth, Daniel and DJ. There's definitely this whole deal with Coinbase is an elephant in the room. You're totally right, because the whole lending piece of it is now kind of somewhat under attack. 2 points that I would say about it is, one, Voyager is not a lending platform. If you remember, they don't actually. What they're doing is they partnered with a couple larger players in the market to actually lend out. What was it? 17% in the last earning call. 17% of the assets for getting yield. And so those partners are the ones that are going to bear the brunt of any kind of litigation around the lending pieces of it. Which again, I think Coinbase probably takes that on for the overall crypto market, anyways. But Voyager, again, they're lending it out and getting the return back, but they're not in the same position Coinbase is, because they're not actually lending and getting that themselves. So I think there's a little bit of a separation from that, which I think was wise the way Steve set that up. So I'll make that first point if you guys have any reaction to that. But I think that is something people misunderstand, is that Voyager is not actually the one producing the service. They're using partners for it.
Yeah, I mean, another thing from my perspective is that, even the worst case scenario in this case isn't that bad, right? Because let's say, Voyager does get bundled up with, the BlockFi, the Coinbase, who in this situation, their lending is being considered a security, right? Which, people have been talking about the Howey test and how it, falls under certain kind of check marks and guidelines through that, saying that it is a security. Steve actually talked about this. I think he was on your show, DJ. I watched it, and whatever it was, the pregame show, and
Right.
he said that even if it is like considered a security, they'll end up partnering with some form of a broker dealer and do it through them. Now, the reason Coinbase doesn't want to do this is they want the profit. They want obviously, if you do it through someone else, they're going to take a cut. So the worst case scenario, from what I've seen, isn't that bad. And when you look at, the stock, which in my opinion, the reason it's been going down so much over the past couple of days and weeks is because of this, I don't think the correlation is really there. And crypto lending being considered a security doesn't end crypto lending. It just slightly changes the back end of it. And I think we're going to move forward from here in a much more positive tone than we've seen over the past little while here. So I'm not sure, DJ, if you want to add a little bit to this, but I don't think it's going to have that big of an impact.
I think for me, it's what they talk about, whether it's, all the tweets from Armstrong or Steve, when they start talking about it, is everybody just wants to know what are the rules. And if they can just figure out what the rules are, then they can adjust their business practice accordingly. And that's where my faith shifts towards Steve in, being around so long in that game, where he can adjust the business because he's been there on the equity side and now full bore on the crypto side, and merging those two together even next year. But once he knows what the actual rules are, which seem to not even exist at the time, it's really just a bunch of threats from the SEC, just kind of wielding their power or supposed power. But once the rules are set, then they can make their move. And that's where my faith is in Steve on, knowing how to go around that or knowing how to work with that, to where it's almost like you're stuck with, well, shoot.
Look
But
at him there.
it's almost like you're stuck with it until that decision is made. And it's like, what his confidence is in is we're good with what we're doing because we've done it the right way all along. And if something comes up, we will adjust to do it the right way. And that's what Brian Armstrong was talking about too, is like, we just want to know what it is. He was getting a little bit more aggressive about it because he felt targeted or singled out. But once these guys who know what they're doing and running it, they just need to know what it is. Boom. And that's what Steve was saying about Armstrong, is like, they have full faith, like these people, and that's even a partner of Voyager. They just want to do it the right way, but no one knows what to do.
Right.
So it's just kind of a wait and see.
Spot on, DJ.
Another thing is that a lot of these platforms are using interest as a for-profit way of making revenue and making profit. And one of the things that separates Voyager, and this is something that has been true for really since the beginning of 2021, Voyager doesn't really make money off of the lending. A majority, pretty much all of their revenue comes from, obviously trading revenue, but their main goal isn't to make money off of lending. Their goal is to pretty much give all of that back to the actual consumer, while you can make a great argument, although BlockFi is private, that they're using lending as a way to make additional revenues. And yeah, so I'm just seeing Steve Ehrlich in the comments section.
Yeah,
and I think they're about to get into staking as well. So
Exactly.
let's say they do get pinched on some of the income from lending services. If they pick up income from a new staking options with Block Daemon or however they do it, which seems to be, I think they've already gotten their toes wet, dabbled in it. But if they start using that more and are able to do that more, that's another income stream. Where if that pinch comes, it's less worrisome because they've just found it, or they just started a new way to generate that income.
Yeah, and DJ, think about it this way as well. When you think about lending, not many cryptocurrencies don't have a staking feature, right? When you look at something like Polkadot or Ethereum or Cardano or a variety of other tokens, they all generate that yield off of staking. So when we talk about this kind of risk of, potential security, lending, etc., that's only pertaining to a small number of tokens like USDC or Bitcoin or others that kind of follow under a proof of work model. So you really think about it, even if things happen, worst case scenario, you still have staking, which is, again, one of the bigger things in cryptocurrencies. So I think we all agree here, the three of us, that this concern is a little bit overblown, and it's just a lack of understanding that's kind of increasing this fear to a proportion that, let's call it FUD. I don't know, fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yeah, I would also add too, like, people concerned about VGX being labeled as security as well. I mean, there's other tokens that are out there that were labeled as security. That also, Voyager's running this as a rewards program. Other rewards programs aren't labeled as security. So if the pricing mechanism is what makes this a security, then there's things that they can do to work around that. I think, again, it's clarity. Once Voyager has clarity, they'll follow the guidelines, they'll push forward, and we'll be fine. And so, DJ, I totally agree. Steve's the one he's been around the block. He's done this a few times. That's one of the reasons why I love Voyager and keep most of my assets there. So
we're having some really interesting info from Steve here. So Big Tico, he says, thoughts on marketing, VGX, and VLP. Steve responds, this is happening live right now, folks. Hang tight on marketing. Pam is making changes. Obviously, Pam Kramer, is that right, DJ? Her last name? Mm-hmm. I think obviously Kramer, the chief marketing officer at Voyager. Might take some time, but hang in there. He said it before. It's obviously a work in progress, right? It pretty much always will be. It's never going to be complete. You're always going to have new features, new additions, and that's what makes it so exciting. It's always a project that's going to continue improving. So great to have this info here from Steve. Thank you.
I think some is lost with that of how like the same people are also doing 100 different things that we all want Voyager to do. The same people in charge of, whether it's, complaining about the VLP marketing, like those same people are also looking ahead at the expansion and marketing involved. Those same people are also involved in the ambassadors. Those same people are also involved with everything else that's on the roadmap of Voyager to do, and they have a part in that. Like all of it is going to be rolled out. It's not,
Yep.
this whole book dropped at once, and that was never said, and that should have never been the expectation. And I think they just have so much going, which is why we're with them, because their roadmap looks better.
We just got another gem here from Steve. Okay, this is just we're
We
commenting
should just
on
bring
live
them on.
news
Send
here.
them the link. Send
yeah,
them the link. Just come on in.
Steve, I'll send the link on Twitter. You can just join it on join on Google Chrome or
He just
something. if you
shows up.
want. No, but one of the things that a lot of people have talked about is obviously Voyager. They have that share buyback program, and this is more pertaining to people with Voyager as a stock. And obviously Voyager is able to purchase up to 5% of their shares over the next roughly 2 years here. And one of the things has been, hey, Voyager stock keeps going down, so why aren't they buying back shares? So Steve Ehrlich just actually made a clarification here that does clarify that in a significant way, that they can't buy back shares right now in a blackout period. I'm not sure if Steve, you can comment potentially how long this blackout period is, but that's a big question kind of answer, because it shows that management still thinks the stock, assuming the token as well, they're both undervalued, and that it's kind of this, blackout period, whatever this is. I'm just kind of looking at the, kind of overall.
Yeah, it's because of earnings. Yeah, it's because of earnings coming up. So
there.
anytime earnings coming up, there's a blackout period prior to that. I don't remember what the length of time it is, but I'm pretty positive that's what it's related to. So
that's a pretty good sign, though, if you're having the entire company like upset, they can't buy their own stock. If they think it's that undervalued and they want to buy it so bad, I mean, to me, that's a pretty good sign.
It's okay, Steve. Thank you for being here in the comments section.
Oh, that's fun.
Oh, this is fun, guys. Okay, what next?
One thing we were
Gronkowski.
talking about earlier is, of course, we're always going to joke who woke up Pat, but we know that you are involved with other tokens besides just VGX.
Yep.
How do you go about your process of picking and choosing what you get into next, what you reload on? Are you pretty much just zoned in on the Voyager app and using those 60 plus? Or are you kind of using the whole market, and if it just happens to be on Voyager, that's where you do it? But how are you kind of zoning in on finding the next one that you get into?
Yeah, I mean, I do spend a lot of time researching other tokens. What you've seen from VGX in terms of what I've written about, I do that for a lot of other tokens. I just don't share it publicly, just because it takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of things I look at, from on-chain data to research things to, there's a lot of work I put into like things like Luna. I've put a significant amount of time into looking at Luna, which I promised an article. I have not released it yet. It's actually mostly written, but I'm holding on to it. I don't know why, but I am. And I think what I'm looking for is a little bit of diversity of kind of best in class that I think will do really well over the long term. I'm not looking for the next, outside of a few like trading things that I do, I'm not looking for the next, next week to 100% gain. It's just not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is people and products and diversity in my portfolio. And so that's kind of what I look for. And so Luna's been one of them. I think it's a very interesting product in the stablecoin market, decentralized stablecoin. I think it's very small comparatively to the size of the overall stablecoin market, so it potentially could have a lot of upside associated to it. Another token, you talked a lot about. I have some Cent token as well, along the same train of Voyager. When I bought Voyager, in VGX, it didn't really do a lot, and it was pretty early. There wasn't a lot of liquidity. There wasn't very many holders. And since the same kind of thing, you got Alex leading that with Ryan and team over there. You got great product. They have a lot of future thoughts for that product. I think there's potential there in being early into something that I think in the longer term could be really valuable in the community of crypto as a whole. So that's another one. I do a lot of trading in Ethereum and Bitcoin just because they're larger, more liquid markets. So I do some kind of weekly trading in some of those. Though I will say I'm not the best trader, but I enjoy the entertainment value of trying to make it work. It's probably more of a wash at the end of the day, but it's still a lot of fun to do and do most of it on Voyager. Some things I do on a few other platforms, but they're pretty small in relative terms compared to everything else I do. So that's kind of my process that I do. There's some that I'll hold for a really long time. There's some that I might trade in and out of over time just because there's setups that I like too.
So we haven't really had a chance to talk about Gronkowski, at least on my channel. I made a video on it, but DJ, I know we talked about it individually, but man, this is big. I think people are underplaying the potential that this has to really grow the platform. And I don't know, Pat, what do you think about them having Gronkowski as their brand ambassador?
Yeah, I mean, I think he brings a lot of attention, especially in the younger generation, and he's out there. He's just a very well-known public figure, and a lot of people associated with him from a lot of different products. And I think he's a great guy from those that have met him and talked to him. It looks like Steve's out there saying Gronk's the man. Yeah, he's that. Obviously, he's been fantastic on the football field, but also is very personable. It sounds like off the field, and so I think ever since that announcement was made, Voyager has climbed up the app charts almost every day. Now, is that related to the Gronk thing? Probably. It also is probably a little bit more people entering the market. I think I saw some research study over the last couple of days of the number of people in NFTs and other things that have really jumped up the participation across many different platforms. So some of that could be associated with that, but I think you can't discount what Gronk brings for attention to the Voyager platform.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the rankings here. It's not investable. I just want to look at the Android one as well because I know that one's a little bit higher.
Yeah, Android's been a little higher. Yeah.
And the ratings are also, wow, look at that.
It's a big spike last couple days.
Can you name 2 or 3 personalities in the NFL that are more recognizable or more out there? I don't think so. So regardless of how I perceive the personality to match a retail investor of fun, engaging, entertaining, that kind of thing, but just straight up, are there 2 or 3 others that are like legitimately a better personality or a better known presence from the NFL? I don't think there is. And in that sense, I think it covers both sides of both big influence and also the fun nature of getting started, just getting going in crypto. He kind of plays off the just having fun with whatever he does kind of mantra. And a big draw of Voyager is making it easy where anybody can do it. Just have fun getting started. Our main draw is if you trade over $100, you get 25 free. Like you're just trying to get somebody in the game, just trying to get them started. And I think that personality matches that approach. It doesn't have to cover everything. I'm not going to talk with Gronk about all the details like I would with Patrick or you, Daniel. But I would absolutely love to talk about him. Like, how do you get all your buddies at a party to get into crypto for the first time? Like, that's something he can do. And I think that's a big part of what Voyager is about, is getting your friends involved. So I love the matchup.
Yeah. And I think too, with Tom Brady, with the other platforms, FTX, I think, right, is also kind of an interesting dynamic, right? That they did a commercial on Thursday night a couple times, I think, and the fact that anybody that gets more people into crypto as a whole, the better. And so I think that's awesome. More people coming on is great. And actually, Voyager will catch more of them because they have the interest component. I mean, a lot of these places, if you want to go trade, great. Maybe there's better trading places. But if you're looking for yield or actually longer term holdings, and you want to be a holder, then Voyager is the best place to do it. It's the best yields, it has the best diversity of places of coins to get it. And a lot of times it's easy for retailers to get into it versus some of the DeFi stuff, and some of the trading books can be pretty intimidating for people that are new as well. So I think it's a great combination of having Gronk and some of these other people like Tom Brady and others that are in advertising for crypto as a whole. So.
And he didn't sell his tokens like Trevor Lawrence. I mean, that's a big part too.
Didn't he have a huge stack of Solana?
That amount of money? I didn't hear you. Go ahead.
He didn't Lawrence, didn't he have the huge stack of Solana that he got paid out in, and then he sold it, and then it went 4x from there?
Yeah. I mean,
let that be a sign.
I think it was like Bitcoin and a few, but like, was that BlockFi? But they had like this big campaign of like, we bring on Trevor Lawrence, and I forget the exchange, but then the news came out, he just sold it all. Like,
yeah,
okay, what good does that do as a brand ambassador? I'm glad,
Right.
So if you have someone who's loyal to the brand, that also kind of helps.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that separates this from like a one-time commercial, or what we've, other than kind of Landon Castle, kind of what we've seen with Voyager thus far. It's much more of a long-term relationship that is, just starting to, bear fruits, but we're really going to see this kind of go into effect over the coming months as they, release these new kind of commercials, and as potentially Gronk talks about it, throughout NFL TV, stuff like that. So by that I mean within like the space of NFL, but it's an exciting move. I think Steve did a great job of getting Gronk. I mean, out of all the over 100 NFL players, he managed to get Gronk on that symposium, right, that they talked about in Las Vegas with Landon Castle. Kudos. That's not an easy gig, getting someone on board who may not have had the most experience about cryptocurrencies. Who knows? I'm not a friend with Gronk, and I'm not familiar with his background, obviously. But Steve, kudos to you, man. All right. So, how about NBA? Victor Oladipo. It wasn't that a partnership a few months back?
It was.
That is. So that one isn't as big as from my understanding with what's happening with Gronkowski now, because Gronk is a brand ambassador, while Victor Oladipo was partnering with Voyager as, kind of like a referral program, Voyager for charity, that type of thing, where obviously people sign up for referrals, they get $25. Victor's half goes to some form of charity that he wants. But obviously Gronk is much bigger than that, but definitely opportunity with other athletes, and maybe even getting them on for a longer term contract or something like that. Yeah.
I think the community as a whole.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Wasn't the Victor Oladipo one? It feels like a different deal, because the Landon Castle and the Gronk one was much more forward community facing than the Victor Oladipo one. And if I remember that, him and Tracy McGrady was much more, felt like behind the scenes in terms of education. And again, I could be misremembering exactly the way this comes together. So, and again, it's okay to have diversity of people and experiences and engagement, right? They might be engaging with the NBA players behind the scene. We're just community-wise not seeing that. That's also bringing people onto the platform versus the front-facing. Everybody loves the Landon Castle and the Rob Gronkowski because they're awesome figures, and like Landon brings a lot from just crypto knowledge, and Gronk brings a lot in terms of his personality and all that stuff. So I think it's okay to have diversity of people that are maybe pulling different strings and bringing different attention too.
Yeah, another big thing for the athletes is their charitable contributions, and so that was a big push with Oladipo, is using a code that would then, if he can use his influence to get people on boarded, it actually helps his charity. And that's just a different aspect of what Voyager's able to do with those referral codes. Oladipo's like, I'm not saying he said this, but it's as if he doesn't need the $25 when you sign up and do your own thing. But if you're going to do that and use my name to get there, then it helps my charity. And it just shows another touch of what Voyager does. But I think another thing with the NBA that doesn't get enough credit for Voyager is the 5-year deal with StormX for it says 8 figures plus that they invested to be on that jersey. And we're already seeing it on the jerseys on the NBA 2K video game. We know the season starts in October. But like if somebody's sitting in that audit or that gym and they're watching Portland and they're like, I want to buy it, they're not going to go get approved on Binance. It's not going to happen. They're going to say, where do I find Stormex? And it's going to be on the Voyager app 9 times out of 10. And that is huge for just the overall network effect of what Voyager provides of getting more new people in if they're loyal to the NBA, if they're loyal to the Portland, every time they're on TV, every time they play NBA 2K and you're in the esports world. You've got Gronk with his history of the NFTs, and they've said some of that stuff's coming. So all those things kind of combine with the NFL and the NBA, but it's that Stormex news that I don't think gets enough credit for the benefit of Voyager, because when you go to buy those Stormex tokens, you're probably going to come to that app.
Yeah. I mean, I also, from my understanding, a little bit ago, Simon met with Steve to kind of implement Stormex more into Voyager, to where, staking is obviously the big one, to be able to stake it and earn interest on Voyager, and, connecting maybe in the future at some point, connecting your Voyager account with Stormex to hold Stormex within Voyager and still earn those different rewards. So definitely an interesting partnership, and I know we all like the Stormex token. We're big supporters of that, so great to see them succeeding for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point. I mean, the more platforms or projects or companies that Voyager can help support that are successful, that help us in everyday life use crypto, the better everybody's going to be. And so I think it's a good point, DJ.
Yeah. Pat, one question I have for you. I know you're very involved with the VGX token, but you've talked about this a little on some of your articles. What do you think about Voyager stock? Are you invested in it? How does that differ to your token position, and maybe just your kind of thought process behind that?
Yeah, I own a little bit of company stock, not nearly what I own for VGX, but I own some of it. I think it's a great play in terms of company equity. It's much more around the whole revenue, generating revenue off of the holdings and the trading revenues and things like that, and the longer term play. So I think, the thing I have struggled with the stock is it appears it trades much more in line with the overall crypto market. I've done charts in the past that kind of shows, the stock goes up and down with relatively the crypto market as a whole. And so to me, I've always kind of played it as I want to be in crypto. I want to own crypto. And so I own some of it, but not to say that longer term it will do absolutely fantastic. I have no concerns about that at all. It's been easier to have my money on Voyager. I've actually even emailed a couple people at Voyager and said, hey, can I just buy the stock on Voyager? It'd be easier versus trying to transfer it and then go to a different platform. And I don't know. I just never really worked on trying to get a bigger position in it. So.
Yeah, and that'll happen down the road. I mean, someone did have a question about why the stock hasn't bounced back after the TI. Oh, he did swear on that, so I'm just going to put that away here. But I don't even know this. I don't really cuss on this channel, but I think it's the fear of this whole SEC situation which has pushed it down. And you see this with Coinbase stock. You see it with Voyager stock, with Big Digital in Canada. People are worried that this crypto lending thing might escalate, when in reality, the worst case scenario isn't even that bad. So it really is just a shift in the back end. That's what we got to understand. That's what we know. And at the end of the day, when it comes to stock, all about revenues, profits, funded accounts, all that continues to improve. That's what I like to look at as kind of that base metric. What happens with share price, I frankly don't care, because I know a few years down the road, I'm going to be sitting very happy because Voyager is going to continue executing, growing, and just executing on that long-term vision of, again, being that lifestyle financial app. So right now, getting in early. It's just a crypto brokerage. I think it's really important to understand. It's just.
And I also say too, equity holders don't like uncertainty. Yeah. Right. People that bigger funds, they don't like uncertainty, and I think a lot of people stayed away from crypto. That's just a point I would add there, because I think that does play into some of that. So sorry, DJ.
Totally.
I think the token holder groups really benefit the stock, because essentially one of the biggest things that you're going to be talking about on the stock is the assets under management. And so as the token strength grows of people holding whatever tokens they have on the platform, even if they don't go into both or something like that, growing that network, as I call it, or growing that platform of people in, like, pumping in investments on the platform is going to help the fundamentals of the stock long term. But also, like, we're talking about the uplisting to the TSX and how it brings more attention, or it brings more awareness to the stock, or it has possibly more institutional money coming into it because it's on that newer, bigger exchange. But one thing I kind of translate over on the crypto side is, if that is going to help the stock over the next, couple of years or whatever it may be, of growing even to the NASDAQ, and you're going up, to me, that's kind of similar to the exchange exposure of the token as well. So if we only have it, or predominantly have it, on the Binance Voyager platforms, and we don't have the volume pumping from other possible exchanges, I think that's one thing that could really help the lowest volume token on the platform, which is VGX, if it's possible, if it's beneficial, if it's safe to get that spread around to some of these other exchanges. But curious if you guys think, is there value in that? Is there possibility for that? Do you think other exchanges are even open to that? What benefits do you see there?
Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think it potentially could be on other exchanges. I hope it does. I know Steve's mentioned in the past that he'd like to see it on other exchanges as well. I mean, if you're exchange, you want to have as many assets that people want to own, because the revenue comes from the trading aspect of it. So, and Voyager already partners with a lot of them anyways, from the Coinbases to the other ones, because they are already pulling from their exchanges and whatnot. So, I don't know what the kind of conversations that happen behind the scenes, but I think it would definitely benefit if we can get it on a few other exchanges versus primarily being on Binance, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it'll happen with time. That's pretty much all I've got to say, because I'm not heavily involved in the exchange game and the process behind that. But I'm sure Steve and the team behind Voyager are well on their ways to connecting with, maybe crypto.com or Coinbase or Kraken or the other ones to get that coin listed on there. But it'll happen with time. It's not something I'm really too worried about. That's kind of my opinion. Yeah.
What about predictions? That's one thing that we've kind of covered all year long. And Patrick, we all know the Metcalfe's law and things like that, and how the network effect will affect the price potentially once the utility is in place. And now it's finally here for us to be able to evaluate, especially at the end of the month or going into October. And like you were saying earlier, like when the trade money comes back in, when the referral money comes in, you kind of see the extra VGX benefit to that kind of stuff. But as you look forward over the next 3 to 4 months, what do you all see in what should or will or probably will impact that price to get up to those expectations that we may have had, months past, once that network effect kind of takes place? What do you see is really going to happen in the next 2 to 4 months, finishing out this year, to impact that price?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more people realizing that VGX benefits them, right? So more users, more utility, more markets, all that kind of stuff is what everything was predicated on. And again, the Metcalfe's law original work that I put together was this whole concept that as the number of people in the network of Voyager grows, of the people that they're serving, the potential, of big curve up, essentially, I use Metcalfe's law to then smooth it out in terms of prediction. Well, if you really look back, what's happened over the course of the last 6 months or more is that you had a lot of centralized people owning a lot of tokens who have kind of sold some of that off in the $5, $6, $7 range and redistributed that. When that redistribution happens, that means that it takes more time to catch up as people come on the platform, become, each one of the levels, right? And I think we saw that again with some of the LGO owners probably selling into some of that. I did some work on that. And then I think you've had some people even on the original VGX that have kind of reduced their positions down. Again, that's all okay. People risk manage, and I think that's there's nothing wrong with that. I think the way that the path forward in terms of price is it's more users, it's more utility, it's better marketing, it's all of those things over time. Where what you really want is is a large percentage of holders, a large percentage of people on the platform actually holding a tier of Voyager, not a handful of people owning the whole supply. You want every single user that can possible to have 500 or have the 5,000 or have the 20,000 that they're going to get their benefits from, and that's why it's going to take time to work some of the supply that's in the market now back through, and as they get more users and people come on and buy VGXs for the benefits, because that's what we're here for, is the benefits.
You ready for that bonfire?
Bonfire or bonfire?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm ready for that right now.
As far as implications go, how do you think that, let's say it does for sure happen, which I hold to the side where it's still possible that it could get extended if the big exchanges involved, are requesting that time for whatever reason, just like they did before. Perhaps don't really hope for it or don't really think it's going to happen. But let's say it's a hard date of the 20th and it shuts off and those tokens are gone. To me, that has to imply certain things for that price, especially just the sentiment of the token, having a more solidified limit to what's out there. But how do you think that swap on the 20th is going to impact the token itself?
I think it's really more of a sentiment thing, DJ and Daniel. I don't think it's really a big price, because those tokens essentially are not on the market today. They're not being traded. They're essentially off chain, off market, and so there's nothing about that burn other than people's now having a solid number that says, okay, I know what it is now, and I know that 18 million of them got burned, because I think we're sitting about 18.4 right now that are still outstanding. And I'll be honest, the last week there's been very few tokens being swapped, and so I'd be surprised if the date gets extended, just because there's hardly any activity. Like in the last 3 days, there's only 50,000 tokens that were swapped, and before that was a few 100,000. I mean, you're really dwindling down those that were going to do it. It appears. So I don't think it's got a big price component to it. I think it's more of a sentiment thing, and if people feel good about that, then maybe there's some additional price change around it. So
yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that'll help us bounce back is that sentiment change, because it's been pretty low. And also, I think volume is the biggest thing on a fundamental side, I guess. But have you seen that? Like, I think it's like a 4 million token wallet that's sitting there and hasn't been touched for like over a year. Have you been following that?
I've seen a few people tweeting about it, and so I haven't followed it too closely. I figured they'll either figure it out or they're not. I mean, but it's fascinating that's out there, right? So,
yeah, I mean, for me, it comes down to sentiment. I've talked about this since the beginning of my channel. Every stock, every cryptocurrency, it's all based off of sentiment and perception. What are people perceiving the value of this thing to be at this moment in time, factoring in the current climate, right? So looking at VGX, I honestly think, and I talked about the SEC situation having an impact on the stock. I think there might be fears of that are kind of translating to VGX as well, where there's negativity around just the Voyager platform as a whole potentially diminishing in terms of how much value it gives. So I do think it's just going to take time, right? And I've talked about this a lot. Voyager continues to execute. That's all that matters. And with time, obviously, that will translate to higher token prices and higher stock prices. I don't think there is, too big of a need to kind of focus on these short-term price momentums, and honestly, just not financial advice totally, but in any stock or cryptocurrency, it's just an advantage when something declines in price for no real fundamental reason. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now, which, at least in my opinion, presents a buying opportunity. Not financial advice, obviously, but it's interesting how human emotion plays so significantly to these price swings.
Yeah, I might lose my bet and I'm okay with that, with $11. But and I'm fine saying it, but I think once those things are in place and you eliminate excuses or you eliminate complaints, with the token swap being done, with the VLP being in place, with the sentiment shifting upward, when those things start hitting on cylinders, and then you have improvements, which I think we just saw today. What is it, the 15th or something like that? They're going to upgrade the app for a couple hours overnight. So whatever that does to upgrade their scaling or maybe the UI or who knows what, these things start to roll out and just build on each other, and that momentum swings. That's when I think, which I've seen before on Voyager, it takes off quick. And that's why I do like these short-term estimates. Not that I'm pretty set on my number of tokens. I have more today than I've ever had before, but the short term is what I like to talk about. But it's because I've been a part of too many times where I go take a shower and I come back and it just went up $1. And that's like what's going to cause that type of moment, I think, is when these things happen toward the end of the month and the beginning of October, when people realize what their benefits actually were by being in those tiers, when they start getting those VGX tokens back. And they're like, oh, I need to do more of that. Like if Patrick's been trading all month and doing whatever he does, and at the end, he's like, that's a pretty good payoff for what I was doing. Maybe I washed on my trades, just having fun, but I just made hundreds or thousands of dollars or whatever it may be on that VGX back. That now I want to use the platform more, which is the gamification aspect of getting people on that app and using it more.
One thing I want to show, and this is, I think my screen is sharing. When you look at Square, this is obviously a company. They have many different kind of business ventures. They obviously have the commerce, the retail perspective side of their business. But when you look at Square, it took off obviously kind of during COVID. And this was a massive move in a really, really short amount of time, a pretty much 3 to 4x in stock price over the period of less than a year. And when you look at the kind of catalyst behind this move up, it wasn't Square's business that improved 3 to 4-fold in that time. It's perception, and it's also sentiment about, partially the Square side of their business, but also Cash App. And this is why I'm bringing this up, because I see a massive parallel between people's perception of Cash App and the potential that it has to be a monster overall financial app in the future, and the potential that Square has. In the fact that currently, you talk about this, it's almost like you're investing in a startup, a company that is just beginning, a company, one thing about Voyager is that it's a startup with very strong fundamentals, very strong management team, and very low risk that has yet to kind of experience this massive change in perception to where people realize, oh, hey, this isn't just a brokerage. They're really here to stay and make a massive dent. So again, people talk about in the comment section, stock going down, up. I don't care, because, over the long run, this moment will come, and it will come with execution. That's just kind of my thoughts.
No, I mean, I agree. And that's where, again, I think sometimes in crypto, we get so jaded with these massive moves, right? And we forget that investing is a long-term thing. And it's best to hold it on Voyager because you get interest on all your holdings and stuff like that, right? I mean, and I call them inflection points. So I think we're just waiting for the next inflection point for VGX. And we're not sure exactly what it is. We weren't even anticipating the coin one that is Coinify, and then the USIO one, and we don't even know what's coming. We have the markets for Europe and Canada and New York still yet. I mean, there's just so much coming to be worried about. The last month's price action it'll drive you crazy with stuff like that. So
yeah, totally. I mean, one thing that is parallel with so many stocks out there, you can use Tesla as another example, or even, this is totally parallel with cryptocurrencies, that, something stays flat for such a short amount of time, right? People get out, it gets boring. The time to invest is when it is boring, right? And then the massive move just happens like that. And if you didn't get in during the boring negativity, your gains are limited. So, what we're seeing with VGX and Voyager stock is, in my opinion, that period of negativity, a little bit of boredom, nothing's really going on with the stock, but there will be a moment where the price will catch up to the fundamentals, and that moment's going to be very quick. And I can, tell that for certain because that's what we saw back in December and January, where the stock went from 20, 30 cents all the way up to $30. I used, a couple months ago, the example of a rubber band, and how you can use like a Sharpie as the company's fundamentals. Over time, it'll match. It'll go up with the fundamentals, but obviously in the short term, price can be stretched down, price can be stretched up, but those moves, they happen quickly. That's important to understand. So it's kind of my thought process. Yeah.
That Voyager pay is going to knock out Square.
Oh, I mean, it's incredible, the parallel between the two businesses, right? Like, they're getting into so many similar things, and the fact that, people haven't even kind of realized that, hey, Voyager isn't just a brokerage. Like, they own and, are getting into these massive new ventures that just make them unparalleled to anything I've seen before. I'm not surprised that people think I'm getting paid by Voyager to be, kind of positive about them, because it's so hard not to be. And, I'm just going to clarify that again. I've never been paid a dime by Voyager in any way, shape, or form.
I now have. I have been paid by Voyager now because I won a bet. I have received financial pay. Maybe not from Voyager, but from Steve. He lost a bet. So, boom. Love it. I guess I'm going to have to give that disclaimer all the time now.
There's the other thing is about, there's a lot of these companies, right? Even PayPal is trying to do the same thing now, and Square, and everybody's trying to get into this game. Venmo, yeah, same thing. And, MasterCard, Visa's kind of making their play on it. And they're all going to want into the space because it's the future of financial applications, right? And there won't be one winner. There'll be many winners, and eventually they'll consolidate because people get bigger than others, and they'll buy pieces of companies. But I mean, this is such a trajectory higher in the adoption of crypto, and Voyager's kind of been my play on it. And there's probably other ways to play it, but so far it's worked out pretty darn well.
I want to comment on this and just kind of explain my thought, because there is no doubt that although through the massive execution that we've seen, Voyager has fallen a little bit short on, or, pretty significantly short on their short-term targets. And that, used to be something like Europe and Canada, which I want to talk about now, because Steve said that, we back, early 2021, that Europe and Canada would happen. Like, Canada would go live March, April, Europe would go live shortly after that. And, I see a massive correlation with this and a company by the name of Tesla. Back in 2017, 2018, Tesla would make massive short-term predictions and then fall short, right? And, through that, there was a lot of negativity because they kept missing their short-term targets, and just a whole bunch of just a massive negativity cycle formed with Tesla, which obviously was broken throughout 2021 and 2020. But when you look at Voyager, I think Steve has made that transition where he's, obviously, no doubt they're executing in a massive way, but I do think that he is kind of shifting his, how do I put it, his timelines to more of, wait, we're going to execute, we're going to get it done with time, and not, hey, we're going to get this done next month, this month, which can come with a lot of consequences for token holders or shareholders, because, as you said, Pat, investors don't like uncertainty. They definitely don't like, missing these, I guess, targets, and I have seen a shift with that. And I do think it's much better, at least in my opinion, to be giving longer term goals than focusing on the short term and promoting that.
Yeah,
I'm not very good with short term goals either.
But you won that bet with Steve.
No, I'm talking about my $11.
$11. Maybe
I think you're gonna win, though.
We might have to wait a little bit longer for that, but it'll definitely come at least at some point in the future.
But I don't think enough people talk about why, trying to figure out why those things get delayed. If I have 200,000 people at the beginning of April, funded accounts anyways, my goals and my targets look a lot different than if I keep growing at an exponential rate month after month. And now I've doubled up to 400,000 2 months later, and now I'm over 600,000. Now I'm close to 800,000. And so when people hear the word scaling, I think they forget what it did to the stress of those doing all those things at once. And so, if they have this roadmap that we all enjoy and we all look forward to, I think you can't just grow your staff like what they've done, plus accomplish those things and do all those networks while trying to onboard 800,000 people. And I wonder, and maybe I could be totally wrong, so I'm just wondering if the amount of growth, which while everybody's complaining lately, they're still cheering that it's going up in the charts on the app. So something's working, because Voyager's goal is to get more people on the app and more money on the app as well. A primary goal, I would say. So it's whatever they're doing is working because they're growing. But is that too much of a stress because they grew so fast to where now the short-term targets become longer because of that? That's just how I see it. So it doesn't bother me as much, because I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I don't want them to stop growing, because that's what I like as the investment side, whether it's the assets or the network effect. But I don't know.
No, that's definitely played a part, and I'm not sure if you want to touch on this, Pat, because you've been involved with Voyager for much longer. But that surge we saw back at the beginning of the year is unlike anything we saw, and it led to a roughly 5-month period where Voyager had to pretty much drop everything and focus on scaling.
Yep.
And that 5-month period caused a delay in pretty much every single aspect of their business, from the perspective of growth, new product launches, international expansion, uplistings. So I think for the time being, we got to say, hey, maybe they didn't execute on Canadian expansion in April like they said. But in the meantime, they managed to grow their funded accounts ridiculously more than Canada as a whole potentially would have given in that time frame. So that's what kind of also makes me confident, for sure, knowing that they've managed to grow throughout that time frame, and that it's not just hey, we missed the deadline and for no real reason, right? You have that reason backing it up, which gives me peace of mind as well.
Yeah, and they're also dealing with a lot of things that are outside their hands. The regulation in Canada has changed. The regulation in Europe's been kind of teetering to change, or has changed, right? And so they're dealing not only with their expansion and growth, but also with changing regulation landscapes that they're also kind of trying to navigate as well. So I think all those are, and I'd say too, honestly, and Steve would probably admit this too, they've made some mistakes. I mean, it's part of growing up as a company. You have hiccups along the ways, and we've seen that, the last number of months, and Steve's been pretty honest about it, and I think it's okay to say that. And I think where do you go from there? I think you probably get a little less information over time, is my guess, and then then you'll find out all at once of this big stuff, and kind of delivering. It's easier to tell it when it's done versus maybe having a big roadmap. So, but I think it's fair to say there's been some hiccups for sure.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's just, it's still exciting to look at that roadmap, and, they've definitely executed. You look at payment processing, you look at staking, you look at, maybe not international expansion, but there's so many other aspects of their business that they've managed to actually develop. And it might not be in the correct order, but they're executing on all of them. They're hitting the check marks off on this massive list of things to do. And over time, that will get done. That's also something to consider. The order, right? Because, look at that massive acquisition of Coinify, payment processing, significantly expanding their app to, allow for like a Venmo style type thing, which will come over the next little while here, as Steve has mentioned. But I think they've managed to actually execute very well throughout all of this, and it definitely adds to my confidence.
two things I kind of see about with people is if you have a list of 20 things that Voyager's about to do over the next year, people are going to pick and choose what their favorites are, rightfully so. I like talking about that. They're going to pick what their favorites are, and then if that doesn't happen when they want to, they're going to complain about that. And when everything else is, all the activity is going toward all 20, people pick and choose which one affects them personally most. And there's always two sides of it. Like we want it to be in Canada just because like Daniel needs this in Canada. So that's one of the things that I want for sure.
That's
But
the only
then-
reason.
Yeah, that's the only
It's
reason.
just because of me.
Just Daniel, that's it.
Sure, it's not going to.
Why else would they come to Canada? Like, there's nothing here. It's just
Do
me.
do they know the round table? I mean, but I mean, you got two sides. Here's how I see people. You have the people constantly complaining about the Voyager loyalty program that just came out. And they're like, oh, I can't stand it. Oh, they need to do more. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And then you've got other people who are like, I really want to be on this app so that I can take advantage of the Voyager loyalty program. And it's like, well, which one is it? Is it appealing enough for people to want to get in? Or is it not appealing enough and you want to get out? Like, which one is it? There's always two sides of people. And Voyager as a whole has to hear from both sides. And that's where I kind of like, okay, people are causing more of the problem than what actually exists. And if Canada, for example, comes, let's say it comes in January, okay, what activity do we have from now until January that really affects the token price or the people waiting on it? Those are the kind of things I start to look at, because there's always going to be two sides of that coin of people complaining about what it is and then people really wanting it to be in their hands. And while one says it's bad, the other one's waiting on it. Which one is it?
I think it's this.
It's just collect your 7% and chill out.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you can stake it.
Just relax, enjoy life, go for a walk, play a sport, maybe some golf.
Play some golf, yeah. And then USDC is another one. That's another connection to Square and Coinbase and all that, because they have their hands in USDC, but you've got the debit cards coming, and the same people are in charge of rolling that out, which we know like beta testing was out there or coming soon. And we know they're all working on that, and you have to scale that as well, not just scaling your app, but you have to make sure the debit card works. You have to make sure the back end works on the transition, and people want that. That's one of the things that I want the most is the debit card attached to USDC, which eventually leads to direct deposit. That's by far the one that I want the most, because that actually incentivized me to have the USDC. I don't do good at savings accounts. I'm pretty high risk. If something bad happens, I can go sell something. I have plenty of things to sell, so I'm fine, but I'm pretty high risk. But that would incentivize me to be into USDC, and I really like that. So everybody's got their thing.
Yep.
Which one is it? They've got 20 things to do. Everybody has their thing. And if yours doesn't happen first, then we get upset about it. That's part of it. But they got a lot of stuff coming.
I agree. Totally. I mean, it's all just kind of picking out the ones that you want. And with time, that's going to, as I mentioned, it's a list, and they're checking off all of the boxes slowly but surely. And it's great that we're all here for the ride. So I don't know if we want to do a quick section Q&A. If you guys have any questions, we kind of just been going through them with time here, but maybe take a little bit of time, answer some of these questions, and then sign off. I don't know if you guys see anything, because I think you also have the chat, I'm assuming, in front of you. Again, same kind of thing with this. Yeah, it's another thing. Canada isn't Voyager. It's just the Canadian government and them getting Voyager into Canada, which is really important to understand that it's kind of out of Voyager's hands, rather. So you can't really blame them for that. So, when Canada, up to Canada. essentially. Talked about Coinbase, team in El Salvador. Not yet. At least I don't think. But Steve has said Latin America is one of their potential kind of, how do I put this? They want to expand into more than just Europe and Canada longer term, into Asian countries, into, potentially Africa, South America, etc. Being worldwide is one of their goals. So definitely one of the exciting
Hey, just to
bits.
clarify that to Jerry, totally having whiskey and soda for you there, Jerry. So
Just some Perrier. Not sponsored. All right. Who wants to go first?
$20. 20. I say 20. 20s.
20s.
20s. 20s. Oh, this is the price prediction one. I've kind of said I wouldn't give price prediction anymore because people get so crazy with me when I give a price prediction.
They do.
DJ throws them out all the time so that people know to ignore them. So
Yeah, I know.
I don't know. I'm not gonna say. I'm not gonna say because it'll make half the people mad and half the people excited. So, anyways.
Yeah, true.
We'll just stick with the last one he gave.
Yeah, there you go.
No, listen, everyone watching, important to stay long-term focused. Looking at these short-term numbers, it's fun in games, but we're all investing in a business here, in a company that has a plan to be much more than what they are in the future. So any price that it goes up to right now will probably, if not almost certainly, will be exceeded once they expand into being, again, much more than just a crypto brokerage, which is really important to understand there.
I don't think 10x is hard to. I don't think 10x is hard to achieve.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, if the market does in October, November, December, like if it matches some things that I believe it's going to do, which the big stuff comes October, November, December, in my opinion, then as that starts going up and you see things run, some things have already done almost a 10x. So I don't see that as far off. That's why I do, like, if it's 250 now, the 22s, 25s, I don't think that's impossible with all they have coming, plus another big run up. Like, if you don't have a big run up in the market, it doesn't matter. It's $5, $10, whatever. It doesn't matter. You keep getting more because the market's stagnant or going down or whatever. But if it goes up and up and up all the way with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all that, yeah, it can easily do it because there's such low volume right now. And if the volume picks up, there's not enough there to buy.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll predict every day. 20s,
20s, hundreds. Oh, what's up here?
Y'all asking for a prediction and he goes away.
Goes away. We'll see when he comes back. I have it on the. What do you think about? I don't know. He's not like Pat. You still there? Oh, sorry. Just kind of left him.
That's the one you should have taken out. You should have taken me out.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Welcome to the Finance Channel. Here today, we're just gonna. Oh, everyone's back. Sorry, getting ahead of myself.
Sorry about that.
If you're gonna get rid of somebody, just get rid of me. Like, that's the one everybody gets mad at. So
yeah, I was ready to do this by myself. Okay. This is an important thing to clarify because Voyager does not own 12,000 Bitcoins. That is simply the assets held on their platform that end up actually showing up on their balance sheet as an asset, but then it's kind of canceled out as a liability. So when you look at like the top charts of companies that own Bitcoin, Voyager is there because technically it's listed as an asset, but that's just customer assets. So maybe they're getting publicity through that, which they probably are, but it's not true. They make money off of crypto trading, and all of their assets, or large majority of them, are simply held in cash rather, which is important. Yeah. All right. I think we got through all of them. I don't know if you guys see anything. just let me know. But just want to thank you all for, first and foremost, Pat, thank you for coming on. This was lots of fun. Definitely very informative. I
It
hope
was fun.
all of you who watched found at least a bit of value here, which, I certainly did, in terms of a lot of clarity of a lot of these different things. And make sure to follow these guys on Twitter. I think both of them are linked in the description down below. Patrick Ackerman, DJ Crypto. Check out DJ's channel as well. So anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for coming on, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.